Seattle's winter rain drummed steadily against the windows, turning the city into a blur of gray and twinkling Christmas lights. From the living room, I could see the driveway clearly, the enormous white Lexus LX sitting there like a smug, overfed trophy, a ridiculous, oversized gold bow gleaming on top. Inside, my hands were wrapped around a ceramic mug. Be grateful. I read the cursive lettering on the side, my lips twitching. How poetic. Danielle squealed again outside as Dad handed her the keys, his arm thrown proudly around her shoulders. Mom stood beside them, phone in hand, capturing every second for Instagram. The caption was already written on her face. So proud of our baby girl. She deserves the world. I stared down at the mug in my lap. No car keys hidden inside, no check. Not even a gift card. Life is fair, Sophia. You just need to be thankful for what you have, Mom said as she came back in, dropping a quick kiss on my hair like she'd just checked off a box. I met her eyes and smiled sweetly. Oh, I'm thankful, I said. This mug is very on brand. She laughed, not catching the edge in my voice, and turned back to the window, to the Lexus, to Danielle. Outside, Danielle revved the engine dramatically while their friends screamed and clapped. I watched her, the golden child in a leather jacket, soaking up all the validation like she'd earned every inch of that SUV. Something inside me tightened, then snapped. For years, I'd stood in that exact spot, on the sidelines, holding some symbolic consolation prize, telling myself it didn't matter, that I was above caring. But as that rain-soaked bow glistened over a car worth more than my entire student debt, I realized something very simple. This wouldn't end with me just swallowing it again. If they wanted to turn life into a competition, I was done playing the quiet loser. This Christmas, I finally understood something else. I didn't have to stay the forgotten daughter. I could become the problem they never saw coming. I wish I could say the Lexus was the first time the scales tipped. It was just the brightest, loudest, most insulting version of something I'd known my entire life. When Danielle was 17, she earned a fully funded summer program in Europe. That's how my parents told the story, anyway. They framed the acceptance letter, hung it in the hallway, and threw a goodbye party 2 weeks long. What they didn't say was that the tuition for her program cost more than my entire 4 years at community college. I still remember Dad's words when I asked if I could apply to a similar program the following year. "We can't afford everything, Sophia," he said, sighing like I was being unreasonable. "You're smart. You'll figure it out. Your sister just seizes opportunities better." Seizing opportunities, right. Meanwhile, I was working double shifts at a coffee shop, memorizing regulars' drink orders while my sister sent back photos of Paris balconies and fancy pastries. When Danielle turned 22, my parents surprised her with a condo downtown, an investment in her future. It was modern, glassy, with a view of the water and a concierge who probably earned more than I did. I was 24 that year, still living at home, rushing from unpaid internships to evening classes. When I got home exhausted and mentioned maybe moving out into a shared apartment with 3 roommates and a bedroom barely big enough for a bed, Mom had frowned. "Why would you rush?" she'd asked. "You're saving money by staying here. Besides, you don't even know exactly what you want yet." Danielle has a clear trajectory. A clear trajectory, apparently being breathe, smile, look pretty, exist. Every time I accomplished something, it got folded and tucked away like a receipt. When I finally graduated, I remember standing on the stage, scanning the crowd. Dad was there, but only for a moment. He'd left early for a business meeting, something about clients that keep us afloat. Danielle had shown up late, sunglasses still perched on her head. "You did good, Soph," she had said, hugging me with one arm while checking her phone with the other. "Now the real work begins, huh?" Yeah, real work. The kind that didn't end with a ribbon-cut Lexus. Those weren't the only moments. There were smaller cuts, too. Danielle's birthdays that looked like mini-weddings. My birthdays that looked like afterthoughts. Her mistakes turned into learning opportunities. My minor missteps turned into lectures about responsibility. By the time this Christmas rolled around, the message couldn't have been clearer. We were both their daughters, but only one of us was their pride. And as I watched the Lexus glimmer outside like a monument to that truth, I felt the old ache shift into something sharper. Not just pain, intention. By evening, the house was glowing like a magazine spread, candles on the table, silverware perfectly aligned, turkey carved and drizzled with gravy. It smelled like home. It felt like a performance. Danielle sat at the head of the table, not technically in Dad's spot, but close enough that it stung. Her friends had stayed for dinner. Of course they had. Any excuse to orbit her. So the Lexus has this insane sound system, Danielle gushed, scrolling through her phone to show off photos from every possible angle. And the heated seats? Life-changing. I swear I could live in that car. I poked at my mashed potatoes. My mug, my very special Be Grateful mug, sat near my plate, the handle still glossy from where I'd faked excitement for Mom's camera. Mom nudged me. "Isn't it wonderful, Sophia? Your sister's really moving up in the world." Danielle smirked, not even bothering to hide it. "You should borrow it sometime. You know, when you're not working late or whatever." "Or whatever," I echoed, my tone flat. The conversation rolled on around me, all about Danielle's busy schedule, her big projects, and how hard she works. I tried to steer it, just once. "So, one of my clients at work." "That reminds me," Danielle cut in, laughing. "My boss said I'm basically the face of our new campaign. Can you imagine?" Laughter, compliments, admiring looks. My sentence died in my throat. I swallowed, feeling the usual burn in my chest. Normally, that's where it would end. I'd take a deep breath, swallow it down, and help with the dishes in silence. But tonight, the Lexus sat outside like a glowing accusation. The ridiculous bow burned behind my eyes. As dessert came out, Danielle pulled out her phone again and shoved it in my face. "Look, Soph. Isn't she beautiful?" She swiped to a video of herself posing with the SUV, laughing, hair curled just right. "Honestly, I think this car was made for me." "Yeah," I said. "Looks expensive." Danielle giggled. "Well, when you're worth it." She paused dramatically, then added, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Besides, at least you don't have to worry about rent. You get to live here for free. Some people would kill for that." My fork clattered against the plate. "What did you just say?" I asked. She gave me a sweet smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I'm just saying, you should be grateful. Not everyone gets parents this generous." A few chuckles, a few nods. My parents didn't say a word. That was the moment. Something icy slid into place in my chest. My voice, when it came out, sounded almost calm. "You're right," I said. "I should be grateful." I lifted my mug and studied the stupid cursive letters. "Grateful that you get a luxury SUV and a condo, and I get inspirational ceramics." The table went quiet. "Grateful," I continued, "that every time I've worked my ass off for something, it's been treated like a footnote, while yours gets a ribbon and a bow big enough to choke a reindeer." "Sophia," Mom warned, "let's not ruin—" "Ruin what?" I snapped. "The Danielle appreciation dinner?" Danielle's eyes flashed. "Wow, jealousy is such a bad look on you, Soph." "Jealous?" I laughed once, humorless. "I'm not jealous. I'm just done pretending this is normal." "You need to calm down," Dad said, his tone edged with authority. "This isn't the time." "There's never a time that works for you," I said. Because the second I open my mouth and it's not about praising Danielle, suddenly I'm dramatic or ungrateful. Danielle rolled her eyes. "Maybe if you actually did something worth praising, you'd get the same treatment." It was subtle. What happened inside me then? A shift? A reordering? I stood up from the table. My hands weren't shaking. My voice wasn't breaking. It felt like everything had finally clicked into place. "You know what?" I said. "You're right. If this is what love looks like in this house, maybe I really don't want it." And then I walked away. From the table, from the performance, from the version of me that always stayed quiet. Behind me, the room erupted into whispers and half-hearted protests. Danielle called my name once, sharp and annoyed, like I'd interrupted her show. She had no idea the show was about to change. I slammed my bedroom door and pressed my back against it, my pulse pounding in my ears. For a few seconds, I just stood there, sucking in air, feeling the weight of everything I'd said crash down on me. The old Sophia would have spiraled. What if I went too far? What if I made things worse? This time, another thought cut through. Good. My phone buzzed. Claire. Claire. Still alive? Me. Barely. Can you come over? I'm done being the punchline. Claire. On my way. When she arrived 20 minutes later, hair wet from the rain, I let it all spill. The Lexus, the mug, the comment about living here for free, the years of being the family's invisible extra. Claire listened, jaw clenched, eyes blazing on my behalf. You know this has never been about you not being enough, right? She said finally. It's about them deciding who's easy to pedestal and who's easy to ignore. I stared at her, fingers twisting the hem of my sweater. I'm tired, Claire. I don't just want them to understand anymore. I want them to feel it. The imbalance, the cruelty. I want them to pay for the way they've treated me like I'm optional. She sat forward. Then don't just confront them with feelings, she said quietly. Confront them with consequences. The words settled between us. Your parents own half of Thompson and Reed Foundation, right? She continued. They're obsessed with their reputation, always hosting charity galas, posting about giving back. Yeah, I said slowly. What about it? Claire's eyes sharpened. Danielle's condo, her lifestyle, the Lexus. Have you ever actually seen her pay for anything herself? I thought about it. About Danielle's vague explanations, side consulting, brand deals, investments that worked out. It never added up. But no one questioned her. They were too busy clapping. We track money for a living at my job, Claire said. If she's dipping into the wrong accounts, there will be a trail. A cold, focused clarity slid through me. You think she stole from the foundation? I asked. Claire shrugged. I think she's always been told rules don't apply to her. And people like that, they get sloppy. For the first time that day, I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. What would we even look for? I asked. Internal transfers, unusual withdrawals, emails authorizing funds to partner accounts that don't exist, Claire said, already pulling out her laptop. Isn't your dad's login saved on the family desktop in his office? I blinked. He lets me send files from his email sometimes for work stuff. There you go, she said. We don't even have to hack anything. We're just checking on the truth they keep telling you doesn't matter. We slipped into my dad's home office like we'd done 100 times as kids sneaking snacks during movie nights. Only this time, the stakes were higher. I logged into his email. No password change. No two-factor authentication. Wow, Claire muttered. For a man who loves talking about security, this is embarrassing. We started digging. Transaction histories, internal memos, foundation site accounts. At first, it was just numbers, lines, dates. Then patterns began to appear. Repeated transfers from Thompson and Reed Community Fund to a shell entity labeled DR Consulting. Same initials, same dates as Danielle's big wins. One document, buried deep in a PDF, made my blood run cold. An internal report flagged an $87,000 transfer, marked as Emergency Outreach Allocation. There was no outreach, no press release, no follow-up reports. Check the receiving account, Claire said, her voice tight. We cross-referenced it with Danielle's emails. One popped up instantly. She'd forwarded the confirmation to her personal account with a single line. Told you I could make money appear out of nowhere. There was more. Voice messages she'd backed up to the cloud. Text threads where she laughed about Dad signing anything if you put enough buzzwords in it. In one recording, she giggled to a friend. Sophia? She's harmless. She'll never say anything. She's too busy trying to be the good daughter. That's what makes this so easy. Harmless, easy, forgettable. My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. Claire looked at me. We could send this anonymously to the board, to the press. We could, I agreed. But that wouldn't be enough. She smiled slowly. You want the explosion to happen in the living room, don't you? I nodded. I want them all in the same room, I said. Danielle, my parents, their friends, the people whose opinions they care about. I want them to watch the truth on a big screen they can't look away from. Claire closed her laptop with a soft click. Then we plan a show, she said. And this time, you're not the supporting character. The invitation was my idea. Late Christmas thank you dinner and Lexus celebration. Dad loved it. It pressed all his favorite buttons: gratitude, status, an excuse to parade success. Within days, the guest list was bloated. Extended family, board members from the foundation, donors, a few local influencers Mom adored, Danielle's friends, and a couple of prominent community leaders. Everyone should see how proud we are, Mom said, clutching the printed invitations. This is perfect, Sophia. I'm glad you're being supportive. Supportive, sure. Claire and I spent the week before the dinner building our presentation. On the surface, it was a highlight reel. Danielle's accomplishments, family milestones, foundation projects. Underneath, it was a loaded gun. We kept it on a USB drive labeled innocently, Family Slideshow, Sophia. The night of the dinner, the house glittered even more than on Christmas. The Lexus was parked front and center, spotless, the giant bow reattached like a crown. Inside, people mingled with drinks, complimenting the decorations and how grown up the girls look. Danielle floated through the crowd, radiant and smug, like a queen at her coronation. You look nice tonight, Soph, she said as she passed me, barely glancing at my dress. Thanks for helping set up. I know big events stress you out. Oh, don't worry, I said lightly. I've been looking forward to tonight. We ate, we laughed. We listened to Dad's speech about family and community and legacy. Then Mom clinked her glass. Before dessert, our Sophia has prepared something special, she announced. A little slideshow to celebrate this year and, of course, our Danielle's new car. Polite applause. Danielle smirked at me as if to say, finally, you're in your proper role, admiring me. Claire gave me a small nod from where she stood near the TV, remote in hand. The room dimmed. The first slide appeared, a photo of our family from years ago. My parents cooed, people laughed, a few ahs. The next slides were harmless. Baby pictures, birthday parties, shots of Danielle's high school graduation, my college ceremony, foundation events. Then, slowly, the tone shifted. A slide popped up with the Thompson and Reed Foundation logo and a title, Where Our Money Goes, A Year of Impact. Danielle preened. Oh, this is good, she said. This will look great on the foundation's socials. The next slide showed a breakdown of donations, grants, and outreach. Numbers, graphs, all polished. Then Claire clicked again. A new header appeared. Unlisted transfers, internal review. The room quieted. On the screen, a line item glowed in red. $87,000. Thompson and Reed Community Fund, DR Consulting. Emergency outreach allocation. No public record. Dad frowned. What is this? He muttered. Keep watching, I said. The next slide zoomed in on the receiving account, then cross-referenced it with another document. Danielle's electronic signature, approving the transfer under a fabricated project name. Someone near the back whispered, Is that Danielle's initials? Danielle laughed, a little too loudly. Okay, very funny, Soph. This is creative editing, but... Next slide, I said. An email appeared, projected large enough for everyone to read. It was from Dad's account, but the language was suspiciously unlike him, full of buzzwords and vague phrases. The timestamp matched the transfer date. Beneath it, highlighted in yellow, was a forwarded message from Danielle to her personal address. Told you I could make money appear out of nowhere. A murmur rippled through the room. Dad turned to Danielle slowly. "Did you write that email?" She opened her mouth, closed it, then forced a laugh. "This is completely out of context. Sophia's manipulating—" "Next slide," I repeated. The recording waveform appeared next. A play icon. Claire hit it. Danielle's voice echoed through the living room, clear and smug. "He signs anything if you throw in strategic outreach," she giggled. "Easy money. Honestly, if they're dumb enough not to ask where it's going, that's on them." A stunned silence. Then another clip. "Sophia? She's harmless. She'll never say anything. She's too busy trying to be the good daughter. That's what makes this so easy." My lungs felt tight, but my voice was steady. I stepped in front of the screen. "This," I said, "is $87,000 of donor money. Money that was supposed to go to community programs. Instead, it went into Danielle's investments. And somehow, right after that, there was a down payment on her condo and a new portfolio she keeps bragging about." I pointed at the red number on the screen. "This is what your favorite daughter does with the trust you hand her. With the money people give you because they believe in your work," Danielle snapped. "You think you can stand there and judge me?" she shouted, stepping toward me. "You really think you can ruin me in front of everyone? This family will always love me more than you, Sophia. They always have." There it was, the naked truth. I felt a laugh bubble up, sharp, cold. "Love?" I said softly, then louder. "You call this love?" I turned, sweeping my gaze over the room. The donors, the board members, the relatives, the strangers my parents desperately wanted to impress. "Let me show you how much that love is really worth." I gestured to the screen. Claire clicked again. A final slide appeared. A timeline connecting Danielle's big wins with suspicious transfers, emails, and documents. The Lexus invoice was highlighted at the end, paid via a credit line backed by the foundation account Danielle had been siphoning. "Here," I said. "This is the car you're all here to celebrate." My voice didn't tremble. "This is the $87,000 Danielle pulled from the charity fund to play the stock market, then bragged about as self-made money. This is the condo she earned. This is the princess you built while you told me to be grateful for scraps." The room erupted. People whispered, gasped, pulled out their phones. A board member stood up, face flushed. "Brian, we need to talk about this. Immediately." Dad looked pale, eyes darting between the screen and Danielle. "Tell me this isn't true," he said hoarsely. "Tell me you didn't sign my name on these approvals." Danielle's facade cracked. I just moved some things around. It was temporary. I was going to fix it." Mom grabbed her arm. "Danielle, please tell me you didn't—" "Everyone calm down," Danielle snapped. "You're overreacting. Sophia doctored this. She's always hated me. She's just jealous." I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "Jealous?" I repeated. "No, I'm just done being your alibi." For the first time in my life, I watched my parents look at me. Not through me, not past me, at me. And in their eyes, I finally saw it. Fear. Things moved quickly after that. Board members demanded emergency meetings. Donors wanted answers. One of Mom's influencer friends posted a vague story about a shocking breach of trust at a charity dinner, subtle enough to avoid legal trouble, pointed enough to stir gossip. By New Year's, the Thompson and Reed Foundation was under formal investigation. Auditors combed through years of records. Every missing dollar had to come from somewhere. Every shortcut, every quiet approval, every emergency transfer. Most roads led back to Danielle. The $87,000 was only the most obvious example. There were smaller amounts, spread over months, all routed through cleverly named shell accounts. Claire had been right. Once Danielle realized no one was watching, she got sloppy. The fallout was brutal. The company lost one of its biggest contracts when clients pulled out, pending clarification. Another partner suspended collaboration until internal issues were resolved. To cover the holes, my parents had to liquidate assets. The condo they'd given Danielle was the first to go. "I'm not leaving," she screamed the day the notice came. "You can't just take it back." "It was never really yours," Dad said hollow. "It was built on money that wasn't ours to use." The bank didn't care about her tantrum. The condo went on the market within weeks. The Lexus was next. Turned out, the fancy SUV had been gifted on a corporate expense line that now raised more questions than my father could afford. Selling it was part of their attempt to show good faith to investigators. The day the dealer came to pick it up, Danielle stood in the rain, mascara streaking down her face, begging Dad to fix this. "You can't let them take my car," she sobbed. "I need it. It's part of my brand." Dad just looked at her, his eyes lined with exhaustion I'd never seen before. "It's not just your car that's gone," he said. "It's our name." Her friends started to distance themselves, one by one. Group chats went silent. Social media comments turned from heart emojis to question marks and side-eye reactions. Screenshots of the projected emails mysteriously made their way online. People speculated. Some defended her. Most didn't. "She's a fraud. She stole from a charity?" Imagine being that entitled. Danielle went from our local success story to that girl who scammed donors in a matter of weeks. There was a night when I passed by her room, door slightly ajar, and saw her sitting on the floor, phone dark, staring at nothing. For a brief, almost painful second, the old reflex flared up. The urge to go in, to comfort her, to fix it. Then I remembered her voice in that recording. "Sophia? She's harmless. She'll never say anything. That's what makes this so easy." I walked away. Meanwhile, my parents scrambled to contain the damage. They hired lawyers, issued statements, publicly committed to full transparency and structural reform. Every phrase was carefully crafted, every action weighed. Privately, they were crumbling. "We might have to sell our shares," Mom admitted one night, voice shaking. "We built this for 30 years. "You didn't lose it overnight," I said quietly. "You lost it every time you ignored a red flag because it came with a pretty smile." She flinched. Eventually, a deal was struck. They'd step back from day-to-day operations, surrender part of their ownership, and personally repay a portion of the missing funds. It wasn't jail, but it was humiliation and loss, and years of rebuilding. And in the middle of it all, there was me, the daughter they'd told to be grateful, while they built an empire on selective blindness. One afternoon, Dad called me into his study, the same room where Claire and I had found the first cracks in their perfect facade. He looked smaller behind the desk now. "We're rewriting the will," he said, sliding a folder toward me. "And the trust." I opened it. My name was there, clearly, firmly, attached to accounts and assets I'd never been allowed to touch before. "You're giving this to me?" I asked. He nodded. "You were the only one who told us the truth, even if we didn't want to hear it." Mom stood in the doorway, eyes red. "We were wrong," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "About a lot of things. About you." For a moment, the scene almost looked like redemption, but I knew better. This wasn't just remorse. It was desperation. They were trying to anchor themselves to the one child who hadn't publicly destroyed their reputation. "A piece of paper doesn't fix years of choosing her over me," I said, closing the folder. "Or the fact that you only see my value now because I saved you from a scandal." Mom started to cry. "Sophia, please, you taught me something important," I said, standing. "Love in this family has always been conditional. On status, on appearances, on who makes you look better." I met their eyes, one after the other. For once, I'm going to choose myself on purpose. The sky over Seattle was the same soft gray it had been on Christmas, the same misty drizzle turning the driveway slick and reflective. A different car waited this time. Not the Lexus that had been sold weeks ago in a flurry of damage control. This was a smaller SUV, practical but comfortable, paid for from an account now partially in my name. "Are you sure you want to leave today?" Mom asked, standing in the doorway. "You don't have to rush. We can rebuild. Together." Behind her, the house looked strangely empty. No more extravagant decorations, no more parade of guests, just quiet walls and the ghosts of performances past. Danielle stood further back, arms crossed, eyes swollen. She hadn't spoken to me much since that night. When she did, it was always a mix of accusation and disbelief. "You really think you've won, don't you?" She'd spat the last time we fought. "You think they love you more now?" I'd just stared at her. "This was never about getting them to love me more," I'd said. "It was about making you all see what you turned me into by pretending I didn't exist." Now, in the doorway, my parents looked at me like I was their last chance at normalcy. "We've changed the documents," Dad said. "The inheritance, the trust, it all reflects what you did for this family. You don't have to go. We can start over." I stepped down onto the wet concrete, my bag over my shoulder. "You already chose who you wanted to keep," I said quietly. "You spent years proving it." Mom reached for my arm. "Sophia, please, we're trying." "I know," I said, "and I hope, for your sake, that you mean it." I looked back at the house, that curated stage where I'd learned to be small, to fold myself into the corners so Danielle's light wouldn't feel threatened. "Not anymore." "You want a dramatic line?" I asked, a bitter smile tugging at my lips. "Here it is. You chose the daughter you wanted. Now you get to live with that choice." The words hung in the air between us, heavier than the rain. I opened the car door and slid into the driver's seat. The engine hummed to life, quiet and steady. I adjusted the mirror and caught one last glimpse of them. My mother with her hand over her mouth. My father stiff and stunned. Danielle lurking in the background like a shadow of a girl who'd never been told no until now. For a second, I considered what would happen if I stayed. If I let them rewrite the story with me as the loyal savior, the good daughter who forgave everything. Then I remembered the mug. "Be grateful." I shifted the car into reverse. As I pulled away, the rain blurred them into silhouettes. The house, the driveway, the memories. All of it shrank in the rearview mirror. I wasn't naive enough to think driving off made everything magically okay. The scars were still there. The years of being overlooked didn't vanish just because I'd finally forced them to look at me. But for the first time, the road in front of me belonged to me. Not as Danielle's lesser reflection, not as my parents' convenient afterthought. Just Sophia, the girl they thought was harmless, the one who finally stopped being their victim and became the storm. And if anyone ever asked me, years from now, when everything really changed, I'd probably smile and say, "It started with a Lexus, a mug, and a family that mistook my silence for weakness." They'd never make that mistake again.